I'm back from my 2 week vacation, which ended up being three because I ended up getting sick while out there. Now, thankfully, I ended up getting sick at the end of my vacation, so thankfully the plane ride wasn't all that terrible. And then once I arrived back home, I ended up pretty much dying. So I took last week to recover. It's been about 3 weeks or so since I made a post, but I am back. I'm back from Japan. I spent about 2 weeks there traveling all the way up from Sapporo down to Hiroshima, and to say that it was a blast is an understatement. In all honesty, Japan was a fantastic place to visit, and I highly recommend to anybody who ever has the free time, the cash, to be able to go and explore somewhere, especially somewhere international. Japan is definitely the place to visit. Now, a brief recap ish for me, but for you guys, it'd be an introduction to what we pretty much did. So, first day, we ended up landing in Tokyo. After about a couple hours, we ended up going up to Sapporo, stayed there for a couple of days, explored some cool stuff while out there too. And then, after Sapporo, made our way down to Hakodate, which is at the lower end of Hokkaido. Stayed there for a couple hours, only to end up back at Tokyo for a couple days. Ended up in Osaka and used that to be our little waypoint between Hiroshima, Kobe, Kyoto, the surrounding cities, and then made our way back from Osaka back up to Tokyo to spend the last couple of days there at the end, and then ended up flying back out around the 13th of November. I would say out of all the cities that we visited, and they were all fantastic in their own right, Sapporo definitely was the best city to explore. It had a lot of familiarity. It was very reminiscent of cities back here in the United States. Tons of restaurants and convenience stores located everywhere. Had more of that autumn scenery that we were trying to look for. The weather was much nicer there. The food was absolutely fantastic. But then again, the food was absolutely fantastic everywhere. All the way from Sapporo, where we drank beer from the Sapporo Beer Factory, which was by far some of the best Sapporo beer that I've ever had here in the United States. They sold beer there that won the Yabisu beer brand, which is only sold within Japan, and then they have this one beer called the 5 Star, which was by far the best Sapporo I've ever drank, and I highly recommend that if anybody is going to Japan and ends up in Sapporo, that they have to try it at least once if you like beer. Maybe even if you don't like beer that much, or maybe you're just getting into it. One of my friends who is just barely getting into beer tried it with me, and his opinion was it was the best beer he's ever had. So if somebody of that caliber is willing to give that beer that many marks, by all means, this place is worth a try. And then, of course, Tokyo. Tokyo, I spent most of my time there. We spent about a total of 6 days. 3 days right after Sapporo, and then 3 days right after Osaka. And pretty much we spent most of our time exploring the surrounding areas. We went to Akihabara, which definitely was a pretty strange town. During the day, it was pretty nice. At night, surrounded by maids on every corner, and unfortunately with the job that I have, you can't really entertain those kinds of people. Just go about your way. But yeah, Akihabara, not really being an anime kind of person, very interesting kind of town, kind of scary in some way too. But we also did a couple other spots too, like Shibuya. We did Shibuya on the later end. Went up to Shibuya Sky. Very beautiful sight of the entirety of Japan. Unfortunately, when we went, it was a little bit overcast, but still a very beautiful place to go to. Roppongi was one of the last areas that we went to as well. And we did spend some time in Tokyo Disney. This is one of the areas I did want to visit because I'm like, it's the first time I'm ever in Japan. I don't know when's the next time. I might as well check it out. So Tokyo Disney definitely was really cool. Disney Sea, definitely worth going to. If you are a person who likes Disney or likes going to amusement parks, I think you would enjoy the scenery of Disney Sea, but the lines were so atrociously long, and I think mainly that's due to tourists mainly trying to get in and do all these rides, to where almost every other ride was about maybe 2 hours of wait. So whether if you think it's worth it or not, by all means. But when I went, it was like $50 to get in, which is virtually unheard of back here in the United States. You want to get into one park, and you're almost giving your entire right arm to Disney. So definitely worth the money at that point. We didn't do Universal because Universal was still pretty expensive, even though we were in Osaka, which is where I believe Universal is located. But instead, when we were in Osaka, we explored pretty much the surrounding areas. We first went to Hiroshima once we came down. Of course, saw the Atomic Dome. Went to Kobe after and had some very delicious, high quality food. Worth the money in the end. I knew that one day I had to really just drop fat cash just to get some really good authentic meats, and I was thankful enough to have had a reservation at this restaurant. And all the restaurants that we went to, I'll put in the description down below for anybody who is interested in going. Every single one that I went to was like very delicious food, and I'll post some of the pictures, the videos that I have here of some of what we had. Maybe I'll talk a little bit about them too. But yeah, Kobe, awesome place. Hiroshima, so much history to it. We went to Nara as well, which I know it has some significance for people with anime or whatever. I don't really know too much about it other than that there's deer, and apparently the deer bow to you when you try to give it crackers too. So I entertained that. The food was there as well. Pretty good. Nothing too crazy, but Nara was still a really nice place to go to in the end. Osaka itself was also pretty cool, more city-like, very reminiscent of Tokyo. And then, of course, we went at the very end to Kyoto. Kyoto was a very beautiful city, a bit more old town style. Everything was more jam-packed in. We went to see my cousins at Monkey Park, which was pretty cool. And pretty much the day in Kyoto was a long one. And we kept it long because we ended up having that be our last day in that area. And then shortly after, we went right back to Tokyo. But a lot of the stuff in Japan, no matter where you went, it's absolutely insane. And if I had to give any advice to anybody who is going to Japan and doesn't know the language, or they're just interested in going, is just go. You don't need really to understand most of the language. If you know very basic concepts like knowing how to ask for water or ask for food, how to get past somebody because it is a bit crowded, you should be fine. A lot of pointing at things, like say if you go to a restaurant, if you ask for an English menu, more than likely they'll have an English menu. It might not be 100% accurate to what we would understand as English would be, but it's enough to get by to understand what exactly you're trying to order. And pretty much that makes it a lot simpler for somebody like myself who doesn't really understand the language to explore. Now, the other thing too is you really need to make a plan because there's so much going on in Japan. Every city is different, and every city has its own different nuances that if you just go to Tokyo and you don't really have an idea on what you're going to do, chances are you're probably just going to sit in your hotel and do nothing. And that sucks because each city has so much to it. So definitely make a plan on where you're going to go. I'm thankful that within my group of friends that we travel with, one of them, the one who planned the whole thing, pretty much laid out a guideline for us and allowed us to abide by it, use that as a guideline, or do our own thing if we wanted to do something. Most of us stuck to it because that was what his plan was for all of us. And it ended up being super helpful in the end and made Japan that much more better because without it, I don't think I would have known exactly what I could have done or what was even available in the country for me to do as a tourist. Now, this is where we get into the good stuff and the bad stuff about Japan, at least from a first-person perspective. There's plenty of good, and then there's also a couple of bad things about Japan, too. Many of the good things, which we'll start off with, are the food. The food is absolutely fantastic. Everywhere you go, from the lowest end where you like go to McDonald's to the highest end if you're eating at a steakhouse, absolutely delicious. Everybody takes care of their food. Every single little detail about the food quality that you're putting into your body is that much better. McDonald's there, even if you order exactly what you would normally order here in the United States, over in Japan, you can taste the difference in the quality of the meat, the bread, the fries, compared to here. It is that astronomically different of the food quality in Japan. And in relation to that are the prices. Now, granted, the yen is going down. The United States dollar is a bit more powerful right now than the yen. So a lot of the food ended up being pretty cheap. And that helped out a lot, because something that you would normally get at McDonald's, let's say you get like a combo of a cheeseburger, fries, and a drink, and it costs you $10 to get all of that. Back in Japan, you're paying maybe $4 for it. So you're definitely getting way more bang for your buck out there than you are back here in the States or wherever else you may be, if the dollar is comparable to your nation's currency. In relation to the food, because I forgot to mention this too, convenience stores are off the chain. Their food quality is probably equivalent to like our fast food back here in the United States. And to say that is insane, because one of the places, Family Mart with their family chicken, oh my god, dude. If you don't know about Family Mart at all, like if you're just going to Japan and you look at these convenience stores and you just want to ignore them, don't. You should go to these places. Now, a lot of people say that Family Mart and Lawson's are more known for their chicken, which is true. We did try out those, and I can definitely say Family Mart has better chicken than Lawson's, but Lawson's is still pretty good. 7-Eleven, on the other hand, which everybody knows 7-Elevens are everywhere, their chicken is not that good. And I did try it myself, and I can say without a shadow of a doubt that they are definitely lacking there. But 7-Eleven's onigiri, definitely worth trying. So if you need quick snacks, go to a convenience store and buy the food there. Honestly, it is way better than anything you could imagine, especially back here in the United States. 7-Eleven's here, low quality. Those hot dogs have probably been rolling for at least a week, and you know that if you're risking food poisoning if you decide to eat one of those. You go to 7-Eleven in Japan, you're pretty much getting a 3-course meal. Another good thing about Japan that I want to mention is it is clean. There's almost no trash anywhere. At least every single city we've been to, there have been no trash on any of the streets. And the downside to that, though, is that there are no trash cans. So if you end up eating somewhere and you have trash on you, good luck finding a trash can. You can probably ask somebody at a convenience store to throw away your trash, and they may do it. But more than likely, you're bringing that shit all the way back with you, or at least onto the train. Which leads me to my next point. Transit is absolutely insane there. The trains take you virtually to any spot you go to, and you're going to be walking everywhere. So if you're not much of a walker, if you hate walking for a long amount of times, I hate to break it to you, on average, every single day that we were in Japan, we were walking anywhere between 7 to 8 miles, and that's including us going onto the train to a stop to take us where we need to go. So if you're not really the walking type, if it's hard for you to walk, this may be a bit difficult for you. Granted, you don't have to take the train. You can take taxis everywhere. But I think it's better recommended to take the train and use the taxis when you absolutely need it. Not saying anything wrong about the taxis. Taxi service is absolutely fantastic. And if you can manage to get the Alphard, the Toyota Alphard, holy crap, dude, you're in for a treat. It is luxury on wheels. So definitely transportation in Japan is top notch compared to anywhere else that I've ever been to. So you can pretty much get anywhere that you want. And you could even rent taxis for the day. When we were in Kyoto, we had a gentleman take us pretty much everywhere that we wanted to go. He would eat, he would do his own thing. If he wanted to join us, he could. But he was our service for the day, and we paid him handsomely and went about everything that he did. So transportation definitely is top tier in I was going to say Canada. I've never even been to Canada. In Japan. Now comes the bad stuff. Now, there aren't too many bad things about Japan. However, if I had to mention anything about it, is the overcrowding. There are tons of people in the entirety of Japan. Now, there are less people in Sapporo, which is part of the reason why I like Sapporo more than any other city, but there's still a decent amount of people. And anywhere that you go, especially on transit, you are going to encounter tons and tons and tons of people. There may be days where it's slow, where you may just stand or you may be able to find a seat on the train, but more than likely, especially during rush hour, you're going to be scrunched up against people, and they're going to be pressed up against you, and it's not going to be pretty. It's going to be, a bit crazy. Now, thankfully, a lot of people are very respectable, so you don't have to worry about people pickpocketing you or anything like that, but still be careful, especially if you are not from that nation. You should always be wary about your belongings, but do keep in mind that overcrowding is a huge thing in Japan, especially when it comes to transit, so just be aware of that. The other thing that I find very annoying is that the amount of tourism that is there. Now, granted, the tourism is not the annoying part. Everybody is welcome to travel wherever they wish if they have the means to do it and if they have the level of respectability to do the travel. Now, granted, there are people who take advantage of the situation. And Japan, being a subject of mega tourism at this point, has fallen under the live stream effect, which unfortunately has been representative amongst a lot of people. Johnny Somali, for example, going to jail. Fidias trying to bum rides on trains, which for some food for thought here. I'm actually kind of surprised he was able to bum rides on trains, because transit, you have to punch tickets into all the stuff before you even get in, and you have to pay to get these tickets. So either he was hopping stalls or flying through when people weren't looking, but you have to pay for these tickets, and you can even pay in advance. If you get the JR pass as a foreigner, you can just punch your ticket in on any of the lines that accept JR and go through, but you still had to pay like a good amount of money to get on that train. So, and we even bummed a train ride. When we were going to Osaka, we had to stall in side one of like the waiting areas, but we still had to pay for that train, and nobody really batted an eye at us because we had our passes, we just couldn't get seats. But either way, people with live streaming gear, you'll see tons of people walking around with like selfie sticks with their phone, trying to record things, talking about what's going on in the area. And it was kind of like sad to see. Granted, I was making videos too, and you're probably seeing some right now as I'm talking about this stuff. But what I tried to do is I tried my best to enjoy the environment that I was in. I have no need to showcase the world what I'm doing in that very moment. One, I'm not big enough to do stuff like that. Two, even if I was, I'm on vacation. I'm trying to enjoy my vacation for myself and with my friends. And people are going up to people and being annoying and trying to like have like conversations across different languages, and it's just sad to see that happen in real life. You see it on the screen, but when you actually go there and you witness all these people that are doing that stuff, you kind of feel bad. And it sucks. But hey, I guess that's the nature of the modern beast. It's really hard to come up with a lot of things that are bad about Japan. A lot of it is mostly nuanced stuff, like the trash can thing that I mentioned earlier, the tourists mainly being in the area, and then the overcrowding. But there's a lot of good in Japan. Now, not everything is stellar. Most things are very, run-of-the-mill. But there are still a lot of things about Japan that are absolutely fantastic, at least as an American, where traveling there is not only easy, but a lot of fun, especially when you know what you're doing. Travel plans, going with your buddies, maybe your girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, wife, whoever you want to bring with you. Japan definitely is a place that I would recommend going to. And also bringing stuff back, too. You have to hit up all of the cool, crazy stores. Family Mart has some merch. Don Quixote, which if you're here in America, we have Marukai and Tokyo Central in some areas. I believe Hawaii has some Don Quixotes, but definitely Don Quixote was an amazing store, which is where I ended up buying all my Kitkats. I didn't get all the flavors, but maybe what I do plan on doing with my girlfriend, especially because they're all at her place, is probably do a tier list of all the flavors, try and rank each one of the ones that we have there, see of all the flavors that they have available, which ones were good. Definitely worth spending the money there. And oh god, the sun is really coming in, so you're probably going to see my red ass face. But definitely, I would say Japan was worth it. It was such a fun trip. 2 weeks probably wasn't enough. I could have gone for a third one, but I think it was great that we ended up going for 2 weeks anyway, because we sped through so much of it. And then me getting sick at the end. I mean, what a way to end it, but there's still so much to talk about my trip. But I'm going to leave it here because it's already getting pretty long. I'm back, though. I'm sorry about my 3-week hiatus. I was doing my best to enjoy my vacation and then doing my best to recover from the sickness that I acquired from it. So I'll catch all y'all later. Peace.